main message for most landholders is take out of your mind what you thought forestry could be. I set up a farm 30 years ago with the express purpose of making forestry, the act of growing and even cutting down trees, attractive to the farming community. You can visit my farm, you won't see one dense block of pines or one blue gum plantation. My trees are 70 different species, both native and exotic. A lot of it's parklands with grazing underneath, because to me I found a way to grow saw logs with grazing. They're along the creek for erosion control with an understory, great for biodiversity. They're in belts for shelter belt and stuff like that. It is up to us as family farmers to change the way forestry looks to suit us. Doing farm forestry is not about you doing what the industry does, because you won't be able to compete. Let's get out there as an Australian farming community and ask the question, what would forestry look like if it was designed and managed by farmers? And I think that's the exciting side, because we can get more trees into the agricultural landscape, we can lock up more carbon, we can get more biodiversity, but we can do it while farmers retain the ownership of those trees and the right to cut them down because they decided what will be planted and they spent their own money doing it. Document what you're doing, retain your property rights and be proud of what you decided to do, then pass your farm on to the next generation with the opportunity to diversify, but you'll have a beautiful, attractive and sustainable farm for agriculture, and overlaying that you may even be producing high value timber should the time arise. And the great thing about wood, you don't have to harvest it if there's no market, you can just hold it. Or if you have a bushfire or devastating event, you can go and harvest your trees. Even if they get burnt, you can still get the timber and you can get some money where everyone else has lost everything. So think about how trees can complement, and don't think of forestry as competing land use. Talk to each other about, okay, we don't want to grow Pinus radiata, the only mill in the area bills pine, I don't want to compete with them. So we start thinking about what are some of the timbers that are likely to be really valuable in the future. And I think for places like South Australia, the durable timbers, termite resistant, native timbers that are also good for craft, high value stuff, you can make your own judgment about what you think people will be prepared to pay for in the future. And that's why our farmers tend to do different things on different farms. We all have slightly different ideas about what suits our farm and what will be valuable in the future.
In South Australia, there's probably half a dozen really good trees that we should all be planting for farm forestry. I've also learnt that if I'd started planting trees myself back in the 80s, bought a property and did it correctly, I'd be a very wealthy person right now. Timber is in short supply, firewood is in short supply. Now firewood today is about $480 to $500 a tonne. Each tree behind us is probably a tonne, so there's quite a lot of money out there just in firewood, let alone milling. I became really interested in the mill because we were finding that a lot of arborists were cutting trees down out of the Adelaide Hills and Adelaide and in towns, and essentially they were dumping them in landfill. The resource is enormous. The price now of timber has, as I said, skyrocketed. It's not going to come back. It will always be high because the demand is so high. The good thing about farm forestry is you can get so many unusual products out of the timber. I'd hate everyone to go back to poor learning and poor implementation of their plantations. They need to take it quite serious, I think, in terms of fencing it off, keeping the livestock out, selecting the right species, the right timing of planting, etc., etc. So all the technical stuff's really important, but also look towards the future.